FM 94, The Dark. It is that time again. It's time to get to know a band we play here on The Dark. And tonight on the phone, I got Scott. He's the lead singer from the band Edge of Free. And first of all, Scott, thanks so much for joining me in The Dark. And how you doing today?
Hey, I'm loving it, man. This is great. I'm not in the dark right now. I'm in sunny, shady tree area hiking around.
Yeah.
But
I heard you're on family vacation, huh?
Yep, that is the case. And I'm at the side of the road.
And I heard you're at a payphone too, and it's not a Maroon 5 song either, correct?
Exactly.
Okay.
It does say marathon on the sign, though.
Hey, let's get to know more about the band Edge of Free. We're playing your song right now called Pony. I knew you had a new album that came out. It was self-titled back in May. Give us the history first of Edge of Free for the listeners out there.
So Edge of Free has been a concept that's been around for a while, a handful of years. And this is something, John and I have known each other for quite a while. He's been, to some extent, like a bigger brother to me for many years and a very close friend. And, a handful of years ago, I think it was 4 or 5, I visited him somewhat out of the blue and said, hey, man, you remember some of those tunes that we used to play together and talk about? Let's go through some of them. And, this was in Nashville, right, at his place in Nashville. And he was kind of shy about it at first, but it really, like we had never stopped doing it together. It was right there. It had this great feel. And I said, we have to finish this. We got to see where this goes. Where could this acoustic, aggressive type of thing, these funky riffs they're not the electric guitar riffs that I'm used to hearing. It's got that kind of energy to it, but we're doing it differently. So let's see what happens. And that started this whole process of, okay, well, I'll send you some songs and you do your vocal thing to it. We'll see what happens. And we did that. Ended up with, say, 15, maybe 16 tunes. We picked, narrowed that down to about 8 and demoed them first, both really enjoying and that we thought had something to offer, And it was definitely the best work that I had ever done in my life. And it's a labor of love to a large extent, I'd say. And that led to us finding, well, what producer is going to finish up the rest of the record with us? And then we got into the whole Toby Wright part of it, right?
Right.
And that took us, Toby Wright was not the first person we ran into. Our music actually came to him through another producer who thought he liked what he heard on the tracks. And the tracks, when I say demo, we only had acoustic guitar. It's acoustic guitar based, but John always, layers some extra guitars on top. So you'll have electric guitars that come in. So we had this guitar bed and then my vocals on top. And that was our so-called demo that we were taking around. And music got over to Toby, had a few conversations with him that were quite interesting because he and I ended up having so much in common. I mean, we spent like 2 hours on the phone, the very first conversation I had with him. And sure enough, we went in the studio in March of actually last year, not this year, a year before the album came out. Knocked out the rest of the tracks in the studio with him, and that became this debut record.
Wow.
So that's the short story. It's a weaving history, because John and I have known each other for quite a while, and we always wanted to do this, but various things in life got in the way and different paths. And, I actually live north of L.A., and he lives in Nashville. So some of it was some struggle of, well, how do we really do this, right? Is there enough technology to allow it?
Right.
And but so far, I think, sometimes when things work, you just need to roll with it and not try and mess with it too much.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe I don't want to be too close to him. You know what I mean?
Maybe. That's the thing, though. Nowadays, I've talked to a lot of bands. It's not the old, we met in high school and all this kind of stuff, and we hung out together for years, played in the garage, and all of a sudden we became this big band. It's finding people on Craigslist, on the internet, and then actually doing all the production in like maybe 3-4 different parts of the world and putting it together as one. It's nuts, isn't it, how it works today?
Yeah, and some parts of it are great. With technology you have. I mean, for him to be able to lay down guitars in an afternoon and then email me the tracks so I can throw down a vocal on top of that. That's killer. The part that I don't like a whole lot is all the extra butter they can put on top, in terms of adjusting the vocal here and there.
Right.
Which we didn't do on our record at all. I thought it took the character away for the type of music we're playing,
Yeah, exactly.
But it certainly allows to bring in the people who really work with you best and not be saddled by, we got two good guys, but that third guy's not so good. What do we do? But he's my best friend. I can't kick him out.
Yeah, well, he could be the roadie, all right?
Exactly. And I actually did grow up playing music, and I had bands all through starting in junior high, Iron Maiden cover band, right?
Yep.
And of course, nobody could sing it, and I didn't sing yet back then, but, it's been my life for quite a while. I did take a break for a few years, but, it's in your blood. So what do you do? And suffer through it.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that, Scott. We're talking with Scott from the band Edge of Free. And, let's talk about you being a front guy, a singer now. And you mentioned you didn't do that at first when you were with the band back in the day, and now you're doing that. What kind of gravitated you to that?
So I always had the vocal thing going on. Even, as far back as 12 years old, singing to Queen, Bohemian Rhapsody, and this and that. But it was more comfortable to be playing guitar and singing backgrounds and letting somebody else step up and do the lead. And I had this weird situation where I don't know if you've heard of Grand Funk Railroad, probably, right? The classic rock band. So that singer, Mark Farner, had a son who showed up in my high school one day. And, that's what the kid said. And then he came down to sing, and he had pipes from hell, he sounded like his dad.
Right.
So, I actually was able to find somebody who was a pretty good singer for my band. This was way back in high school days, which, I'm not 25, so that was a little bit ago. So that was, when I had that kind of, I was lucky enough to find people to do that. But I did switch to lead vocal, pretty early on, a while ago in my 20s, right?
Yep.
And but I always played guitar still. I was still a lead singer who played guitar pretty much on every tune, and I was saddled by that. And for this project, I don't know, I'm not 100% sure why, but it just felt really natural to say, hey, you know what? Just because I can play guitar doesn't mean I need to. Maybe it's not right for this, and I don't feel like it's right for this project. The vocals are really personal and a bit taxing, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
They take my full attention. So that's how I've moved away from guitar into full lead vocal position, so to speak, over the years.
Let's talk with Scott. I want to talk about the name Edge of Free, and that's probably something you always get brought up with when you do an interview. But I guess, is there a significance behind the name? How did you guys come up with that name?
So that is a name that does have some meaning for me that I jotted down in my lyric book. I used to keep these lyric journals, and I've got probably 4 or 5 now that have hundreds of pages in them. But I had that name for quite a while, and it was a name that John and I used when we started doing this kind of music. It was 10, maybe 15 years ago when we wrote the very first couple of tracks. Some of those guitar parts made it onto this first record, believe it or not. They survived that long. And so I was going through some tough times, some personal issues, a lot of heavy drinking, that type of thing. And I was just mulling over the struggle that people endure, that they go through in life, and trying to figure out what you want to do with your life, that kind of thing.
Right.
How to get to where you want to be, and what does it even mean when you get there? What if you had those things that you want so badly? How does that make you feel? Are you really free now? There's the whole thing about being free. There's this whole chase for things in our society that you hope would lead to a feeling of, well, hey, now I'm free to do what I want. So, especially with the emotional issues and the alcohol issues I was having at the time, I felt like, there is no true freedom as a human. You're always on the edge, right? And it's that struggle. You're right at the edge, still struggling to get as close as you can to being free, but you're ultimately bounded by your human existence, your need for things. So that may be a bit abstract and existential, but that's the truth, to be honest. That's how I scribbled it down in my notebook one day in one of my musings,
Very cool. And, of course, on your 8-track CD, it's song number 7, too. So you got a song off of it, including your name, is Edge of Free.
Yeah, that happened. And that's one of the tracks that made it through from the old days that we brought up to this record. And it was kind of in words and in a guitar riff with melody, putting that struggle to a melody, basically. And that phrase, step beyond the edge of free, is the chorus, the punchline in the chorus there, and it's suiting for the concept of the name.
Right. We're talking with Scott. Go ahead, Scott. Yep.
I was just gonna say, and like Led Zeppelin was already taken, so what are we gonna do?
I get that every once in a while. People say, yeah, these names were already taken. I couldn't use them. I had to pick something else, so why not? Hey, we're talking to Scott from Edge of Free. Let's talk about your latest track that we're spinning on our airwaves here, Pony. And it's track number 3 off the new CD, the self-entitled CD. What's the meaning behind the song there? And give us a little meat on this, little dirt on this song.
So Pony, first of all, especially when you're writing your first set of songs in a particular genre, for this style, for this thing that we're doing right now, I was putting a lot of different ideas into the song. But 2 major things that came out of it, and the meat of the song is, it really ended up being about my struggle that was the year I spent in Nashville when I originally moved there with John. And this is part of the whole story of how we worked together. Then we went our separate ways. I went back to L.A. I ended up doing some other things, both in music and then later in science. And then, we've come back together. But that year in Nashville was such a cathartic and really, really hard year to deal with. That's where you get some of those pre-chorus lines, And I lived in this tiny little attic that had been converted into this apartment, right? Okay. And it was $150 a month to live there, which was great. But it literally had no heat. If you lean too hard against the wall, the exterior wall, you could see light in the floorboards. So, it was like not only was I living in a shack, but I was literally losing my mind at the time. And then one day, I'm going to see how I phrase this because who knows who may hear it. There is a story that goes along with, I met somebody there who seemed to be the person who would solve all my problems, right?
Right.
When you're pretty lonely and you're in this new city and you happen to meet somebody who's so aligned with you. I had this I was rollerblading in the park. So this is the absolute literal truth, right? Rollerblading through the park, the main park in downtown there, and this other really beautiful woman is there, and she's starting to rollerblade, and I ended up exchanging numbers with her and went on a date with her. Didn't know anything about her. I mean, we got together like the next night. And I find out while we're saying, oh, hey, what do you do? Oh, well, I'm into music. I sing for a band. And I'm thinking, okay, I also sing for a band here. And what's the name of your band? And so she told me, and we talked about it. We realized we were playing a show together coming up in 6 weeks. I mean, how freaky is that, right?
Yeah.
And I walked in, and her apartment was decorated the same way my little attic area was, and it was just one of those things that was so coincidental in a way. And, that's the part of the love story. Fable came to fortune is a pretty hidden line. I don't expect anybody to ever figure out what that really means. But that would tell you who the person is.
Nice.
So it's about a girl, and it's about running away to a different state, doing what you need to do, and what you love, and love story mixed in with some painful struggles, which kind of seems like the way it always happens.
Right. It is. It is always that way. It's always something to do with love and all that kind of good stuff, huh?
Love and hate, love, hate, love.
Love and hate, love and hate. Hey, one thing I want to ask you about too here, as we're talking with Scott from the Edge of Free, is the song that I've heard, Pony. It definitely is a different sound than you hear on the radio, which is cool, very refreshing. I guess let's talk about that a little bit. How is it being received right now on radio?
We're being received, which is good.
Yeah.
And so, from what I can tell, things are doing really well. We got an ad on WIL Chicago the other day.
Yep.
Actually, that was probably a couple of weeks ago.
Yep.
So the feedback I'm getting is, people are picking it up. It is different than what's out there, so it's taking time to build. But I love the fact I'm getting some feedback, and even if it really matters to me to hear that even one person responding, that it means something to them.
Right.
That's really cool. It's neat when your family and your friends say, hey, I think you're good. I like your song. But, you've got to get outside of that circle. So finally realizing, hey, there is something here that's touching some people. And that's really what it comes down to. Music's been incredibly important for me in my life.
Right.
And I think it is a justifiably great thing to do just for the sake of doing it, for the sake of the art, and I hope that doesn't come across as, oh, you're an artist, yay. That's not what I mean. I really, really firmly believe that doing it just because you if you can, in this case, is worth doing it. And anything else that comes along, people playing it on the stations, getting to tour, and people, following us to be able to be part of the fan base would be amazing.
Right. Yeah. You just you led right into my next question, Scott, about touring that. Now it's just you and John that basically make up the band itself. And then, so when it comes to touring, then do you have to get a couple other guys together? Have you done any touring yet? What are the plans, I guess, for that?
We've got plans that I need to hear back about soon, because there's a fall tour pending.
Okay.
Which, my manager, Kevin, over at Straight 8, I need to tag up with him when I get back from my little vacation here. But meanwhile, we do have the guys that we play with in Nashville, Steve Eby and Chris Autry, and they're great guys. And they would, barring some other problem, they would go out with us and play that part in the band. And that's who played with us on the record. But we can also do just a two-man acoustic show,
right,
and get the bulk of the message across for the song. And I love that part of it, because it was really important to me that we can do this thing for real,
right?
And that's, I want to be able to sit on my porch and play guitar and sing for my kids when I'm 75.
Exactly.
So,
exactly.
Yeah.
Hey, so let's talk about the touring then. So, and one question I always love to ask is, if you had to put together your maybe ultimate bill tour and who you'd love to go out on tour with, who would be some of the other bands that you'd like to hook up with and go out on tour with?
One that would be really, I think my number one pick that might have a chance of being realistic would be being able to tour with Stone Temple Pilots.
Okay, yeah.
Say they get that back together,
yep,
and they go out. I think that would be a fan base that would really dig what we're doing. There's also, I heard some tracks from Stone Sour that I thought, hey, there's a similar vocal here.
Right.
Maybe people would latch onto that. And we've also got some new tunes in the works. We're going to have another record, not yet, of course, but the material that we're working on now, because writing is always happening, right? That's
right.
what we do. We are gearing just a touch heavier. So I could see maybe a Rival Sons.
Oh yeah,
together.
absolutely.
Now, Pearl Jam would be killer, man. I'd be a bit scared to get up in front of those guys, though. But I'll give it a shot. Just give me a chance.
Yeah, yeah. You can. You might be able to ride on the coat strings a little bit to kind of help you along, right? That would help.
Yeah. Well, I hesitate to bring it up but my answer would have been Temple of the Dog.
Okay.
That would be a
Yeah.
killer.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, having what just happened to Chris Cornell is such a blow. And I actually had written that in an interview a month and a half ago or so.
Right.
That was one of the people and tours I'd like to get on with. It's so up my alley.
Right. Let's talk about that for a second. You get somebody like that has such an influence on a certain genre. I go back here, a year plus when Prince passed away, since we're in Minnesota here, and you didn't realize the impact that he had in all of music. How hard is that for an artist to see that happen?
Man, especially Chris Cornell's death, hit me like a rock. I mean, I've still not even processed it completely, mostly because the guy was incredibly influential for me as an artist. I mean, there was something I really related to and connected to with that. And beyond that, just as a person living life, knowing that you've been through, and you are still dealing with addiction.
Right.
I've been down those same damn paths, and I thought he was on the other side, like I think I'm on the other side, right?
Right.
And then this happens all of a sudden, and I'm thinking, yeah, you're never safe. It really is just one bad decision away from disaster. Once you've got this damn disease, and it really needs to be looked at that way, as a disease. Once you have an issue with addiction, you're going to be managing it, fighting it for the rest of your life, and it's doable.
Yeah.
But you got to be careful.
And unfortunately, in any profession, you can get caught up in things. But obviously, in the music profession, there is a lot of things that happen behind closed doors that sometimes people don't think about, where you can get wrapped up, and it really could take over your life, can it, Scott?
Absolutely. Yes. And, being away from people you can...
Yeah, your support system.
Your support system, your family, your routine, your home, so to speak. Dangerous position to be in.
Yeah, it is. It's tough, and and still people today, are mourning. But I was just curious more. Joe Public can mourn one way, but I really haven't had a chance to talk with a lot of artists that are in the profession and how they've kind of dealt with it or mourned with something like this. And it seems like it continually happens. It's not just one freak thing, but it's a continuous thing over time, year after year, different people. It's just, you just fill in the names, it happens, doesn't it?
Yeah, we've lost, it's too much already.
Right.
And I do think that there's a misunderstanding sometimes that comes with fame. And fame has a really bad dark side to it,
right.
Where the feeling of being superhuman, well, sorry, you're not.
No.
You've got the same frailties as everybody else, no matter what you're doing for your career and what you're doing tonight, whether you're playing for 30,000 people or playing on your backyard or playing with your kids,
Yeah.
And I have to admit, I still have not processed Chris Cornell's death.
Right.
It's just, I'm waiting for that, oops, there was a mistake, something else happened. I mean, like, really? It doesn't register yet.
Yeah.
So
it is. It's just a sad thing indeed. Hey, we're talking with Scott from the band Edge of Free. Their latest song is called Pony. I know you're on a little vacation, so I'm sure you want to get going. Let's get out there for the listeners, how they can find out more information about your band so they can get hooked up and find out more about you.
Sure. There are two major ways. Facebook, edgeoffree.com. Just don't forget the extra F because it's Edge of Free. So there are two F's in that.
Yep.
But yeah, Facebook, Edge of Free, and then edgeoffree.com, straight there. Either one of them. We also have Twitter up and Instagram, and we will actually respond to people. I don't think people realize sometimes they might be talking directly to me when they go to the Facebook page, and they send me a message. I look at it. I talk to people.
Awesome.
It's fine.
Awesome.
So yeah, and the website would be a great place to get, if you want, the CD is going to have the best sound quality by far, and also has the art booklet where we spent, a decent amount of time putting together these lyric pages so you can really have something else other than the song to go with every song.
Very cool.
And actually read the lyrics out.
Awesome. And you know what? Here's the deal. Hopefully people are actually listening to this interview tonight. They are. Make sure you Facebook them, and then you can say, hey, ask him how his vacation was. That'd be great. Find out what's going on, huh?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love that.
Hey, you know what? Keep in touch with us and let us know when a tour is coming around, and maybe we can get you to come to our town here sometime, too. That'd be great.
Absolutely. I'd love to do that. And we could do a 2-man acoustic thing.
Absolutely.
Relatively early, and yep, we'll definitely do that.
Hey, your latest song is called Pony. We're going to play it right now. A lot of fun talking to you. Have a great rest of the trip, and we'll talk to you soon.
Much appreciated. Love you.
Once again, that is Scott from the band Edge of Free. Their latest song is called Pony. You're hearing it right now. It's on The Dark. It's on FM 94.